Okay, welcome to Forte and Goal. I'm going to be talking today about the game on Thursday night, the phenomenal game on Thursday night, opening day of the NFL 2021. And people were not disappointed, I can tell you that. I know I wasn't. Um, what a game. What a game. What a show by both teams. Very proud of how the Cowboys showed up. Um, they did more than show up. In fact, I think they proved to everybody, and this is my first takeaway, that they are a much better team than most people thought. I think most people thought that the Cowboys had too many question marks to really make any noise or to really be a factor in this year's run at the Super Bowl. I think they felt that there were just too many weaknesses. Quite frankly, I think that for a lot of people it wasn't about questions. It was about just straight up calling these things a weakness. I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, Cowboys don't have a defense." Well, I don't know. 4 turnovers against the reigning champions, 31 total points. Much stouter against the run. Yes, a few breakdowns, but all in all, I think the defense played really well. On top of that, I think that there were some tremendous performances. I want to get into that in a second. But I do want to make sure that everybody is just aware of what a phenomenal effort this was from the Cowboys. I mean, they actually were well coached. They were well coached in this game, or at least prepared, I should say. They were well prepared for this game, for this moment. So the coaching staff deserves deserves a lot of credit for that, and that includes Mike McCarthy. I'm not his greatest cheerleader or fan or anything, but Mike McCarthy and his staff definitely had this team, ready to play. Without further ado, let's talk about some of these takeaways. First and foremost, Dak was incredible. I don't think you could ask for much more at all from your quarterback, especially under these circumstances. Not only is he playing in the first game that he's played in since, what's that, 11 months roughly? Since early last season. Not only did he not play in the preseason or even, put himself under fire during preseason, he was ready for it. He said he was ready for it. He wasn't afraid, and he said he wasn't going to be afraid. So all of these things, you factor them in, and how sharp he was, how he stood in there in the pocket against a phenomenal defense with the blitz coming at him. Todd Bowles, the minute you get close to their to scoring, they want to come at you. So he handled it time and time again. Actually, stats say that Dak, for his career, is one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz. On the other side of the coin, the person that people call the GOAT, is not. His QBR or rating, quarterback rating, I forget which one it is, drops down 30 points when he's pressured. And it showed up last night. And I think that as we look forward to what weaknesses the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, I think we see a few things. And one of them is Brady is susceptible to the blitz. The way I see it, the only way that he beats the blitz is when you let his receivers get inside so that he can make a direct, straight throw. If he's under pressure and he has to throw the ball outside, it's a problem because he needs to step into the throw or he's using, just straight arm talent. And that's where the mistakes come in. Pardon me. And that's where, not only mistakes, but that's where, the interceptions and all these other things come up. This is where the problems stem from. So I definitely see some weaknesses in this Tampa Bay team. Not sure if they're glaring weaknesses, but they are weaknesses. The other thing is that Tampa Bay, if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to beat them through the air. And the minute you go to the air game, okay, they're not slouches in their secondary, okay, but they're not as good as their front seven. And on top of that, you're gonna have to beat the blitz because Todd Bowles will blitz you. Okay, so if you're not good against the blitz, if you don't have great receivers, if you can't beat them in the air, you're not beating Tampa Bay. You're not beating them on the ground. That you can bet on. So that's the first thing. Now, why aren't you beating them on the ground? I'll tell you what. Again, recognizing talent. I already mentioned Dak and what a phenomenal game he had. I actually feel like he outplayed Tom Brady. Tom Brady had a great game. Nothing to take away from him. But he finished with 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a little bit under 400 yards. Dak finished with 400 plus yards. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. His stats were better. Okay, and the 1 interception, by the way, was not his fault. And I know the 2 interceptions, one of them was a Hail Mary. I don't hold that against him. But the throw that was intercepted, the one to, I think it was Fournette, was a little bit high. Okay, it came off his fingertips, yes, but it was high. The throw that was intercepted by Dak was a perfectly thrown ball. Okay, and then it was right there in his chest to be had. So we can argue those little details, but the point being is I think Dak outplayed him. But why does that Tampa Bay defense so good against the run? It's because of Vita Vea and, of course, the 2 phenomenal athletic linebackers, Levante David and then Devin White. Now, let's remember something about these champs. Okay, they were the healthiest team in the league last year. Okay. That's not likely to happen, so that's another thing to keep an eye on. They already had one of their cornerbacks go out. They already had a safety out. So, you're talking about the possibility of injuries. I'm not wishing it on anybody by any means, but it is a possibility that we have to consider. Okay? The other thing I mentioned about Brady under pressure, I mentioned beating them in the air, especially right now when they have 2 of their defensive backs missing, maybe 2 missing for the next game. I don't know. It might be 1. We'll have to see what the injury report brings. But Vita Vea is a monster of a man. The guy's 6'4", 345, might be more. He plays big. He eats up the offensive linemen, frees up those linebackers. He moves with great agility, much better than people would expect. So there's all of that to consider. I mean, when you have him as a linchpin to your defense, to your front 7, I mean, everything just becomes so much easier for everybody else on the line, and that includes Ndamukong Suh, JPP, Shaq Barrett, and then they bring the blitzes under in circumstances when you look like you're going to be scoring. That's when they really come at you. Okay, enough said about Vita Vea. Shout out to Connor McGovern, who stepped in for Zach Martin, did a phenomenal job, handled the blitzes, handled the stunts, was not overpowered, much. He's going against Vita Vea, so yeah, of course, he was pushed and had a hard time, but he held his own. He did a great job, and he deserves a shout out. A couple of things that came up that I've heard about. People talked about Zeke not having a good game. Well, I don't see it that way. Look, you weren't going to run against Tampa Bay. Kellen Moore, the OC for Dallas, was able to recognize that and didn't beat a dead horse, so to speak. He kind of abandoned the run for the most part, and I think that was the smart thing to do. I mean, yeah, I would like to have seen a few more rush attempts. Yes, I would have liked to see some more screens. Okay, but I think he called a really good game. It was creative. It was a creative game. It kept Tampa Bay off balance. I think that they protected him really well, Dak very well. He threw a lot of quick passes to get rid of the ball. That's why Dak's average, yard per throw, per pass was actually on the lower side. But keep in mind, he was getting rid of the ball super quick. He was throwing the ball short. There was a reason for that. It's not because, he likes to throw the ball short. He's a dink and dunker. That's not the case. It's just you're playing against a really strong front. They're blitzing you a lot. You have to get rid of the ball, and a lot of times it's going to be a short pass. But Zeke did a wonderful job. He ran, with real direction. He real purpose. He hit the holes fast. He made some sharp cuts. He didn't just, like he did last year, he would approach the line and kind of do a little Le'Veon Bell where he sort of danced a little bit looking for a hole. He didn't do that. He hit holes. He protected the ball. He didn't fumble. He was phenomenal in pass protection. He kept Dak clean. He was blocking correctly. The blitzers, I would say almost every single time. He was phenomenal in the passing game as far as blocking. And speaking of the passing game, he had 2 catches for only 6 yards, but you have to remember he was more of a safety valve and he was blocking so often. And really, Dak does like to push the ball down to the wide receivers or the tight ends much more than he does, unless it's a screen to the running backs. So that's the Zeke piece. And then I heard some negative talk about Micah. My God, Micah, who I like to call Micah Might, Micah is playing in his first game. He's a phenomenal rookie, and his play in this game was nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, he was great. He had 7 tackles, a PBU, okay, a quarterback hit, and he continually made plays. And there were times that he made plays that don't show up in the stat sheet. So when people sit there and they think, oh, he took a couple of bad steps in the game. Well, that's a whole game. You're going against a guy that's recognized as the GOAT, who has played 22 years playing against a kid that's 22 years of age. Okay? And to only be tricked a couple of times, that's pretty doggone good. So, let's not overdo it, people. I mean, he's not going to be perfect the first time out in a real game. I think that the Cowboys can take away from this game that they can play with anybody, and I think most people would now agree that they can, and that they should be favored in the NFC East, and I think they should be taken very seriously in the NFC, period.